What's up, everybody? Welcome into the New Life Pod. We're so glad that you decided to join us today. Thanks for being here, Dev.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Just made it in on time.
Guy
10
gets stuck in
o'clock.
traffic a lot.
I didn't get stuck in traffic today.
Living up in Brantford.
I was actually we have a flag football event for the youth group. And so I was out on the field. It was soaking wet out there. And I'm just sitting there painting lines.
You painted them today?
I painted them, fresh painted for our event. The kids are going to be excited.
How many boys are we looking at tomorrow?
It's about 30.
Woo, baby. That's
30 kids, and then we probably got another 10 leaders who are going to show up. You gonna be there?
I can tell you based on
come.
my son's excitement and the amount of people that he invited, there's going to be a lot of 7th grade boys there.
Oh, that's great. It'll be good.
So you might need two groups.
No, I think we can split the field in half and have 2 games going.
Yeah,
at the same time.
I don't need a junior in high school running my son over.
It's flag football, dude. There's not.
It's high school and middle school boys. Someone is getting tackled.
Somebody's gonna get pancaked, as they say.
You better have people sign a waiver. I know. That's all I know.
Oh, you're right. That's a good call. It's a good reminder, my friend. I did say that. If Mateo can back me up. I did say we are going to do the waiver, but I forgot I had to send it out
today. If the next pod Dev's not here, it means someone got hurt and he didn't have them sign a waiver and he got fired. So we'll have a new guest host, or I'll just be doing it solo from here on out.
It'll just be me from a church in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I got fired and got to find a new job.
Oh my gosh.
That's it. What's going on with you?
Nothing.
Any big plans?
No
You're
big.
Gonna come to flag football?
No big plans. I'm gonna drop my son off.
This guy doesn't want to hang out with the youth of our church.
I did my time.
You could play. You could be automatic quarterback.
It's kind of like a prison sentence. No, it's not. Teenagers are awesome, but I did my time. We never did flag football though. I love flag football.
It's great. It's so much fun.
Intramural reminds me of intramurals in college.
Oh, did you play intramurals in college?
Heck yeah, I played intramurals in college.
Did you ever win any championships?
Heck yeah, we won championships.
You went to a very small liberal Christian arts
we were nasty.
School. That's where he went.
Basketball, volleyball. We lost 3 straight years in the championship game for football, though.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
K3N, I believe. If I saw any of the guys on Krause 3rd North, like just now, like almost 20 years later, I would punch them in the face. That's how mad I was that we lost those 3 championships.
Still now.
Yeah.
You've been out of college for...
I've been out of college... It'll be, oh dang, dude! It'll be 20 years in.
Oh my goodness!
In 2028, it'll be. So I'm 2 years away from my.
You've been out of college for 18 years.
2008, I graduated college.
Wow.
I'm an unk, bro.
Dude, that's like when the first Transformers.
I'm an old head. Don't look at me over there. You got Mateo was
born in 2008.
No, I was not.
Are you 22?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's looking at me like this.
2003.
It's rude.
2003.
You were born in 2003? That was my junior year of high school.
That's when LeBron was drafted into the NBA.
I've never lived a year where LeBron hasn't played basketball.
Dude.
Professionally.
That's crazy.
You've been alive for the GOAT's entire reign.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
Here we go.
Wow.
Please cut this part out because I'm going to say bad things.
It's been a privilege to witness that great.
Yeah, dude.
An honor and a privilege to watch a guy with no bag play basketball.
And no hair.
Just put his shoulder down and run over people. Hey,
okay.
Respect the longevity and the career, the health, takes care of his body. Great, seems like a good dad. Give him all the props in the world. He's on my Mount Rushmore, but he's not the GOAT.
Okay.
He's not the GOAT of basketball. He's on my
basketball.
Mount Rushmore of basketball.
Serena Williams, again, if you're listening.
You can't lose. You can't if you're listening, Serena. If you're listening,
I still got your back.
we'd love some Nike gear.
Yeah.
You can't lose. You can't lose more championships than you've won and be the GOAT at anything. How about that?
I mean, but if we're just counting championships, all right, Bill
No,
Russell.
no. We're not counting championships.
He didn't lose more than he won.
We're not. I'm saying if you can't be the GOAT. I'm not saying Bill Russell is the GOAT because he's won that many. I'm just saying you can't be the GOAT if you've lost more than you won. Like Muhammad Ali can't be the GOAT if he lost more fights than he won.
We gotta switch up. Like we gotta do one week where it's not sports goats. It's like baking.
Well, we
goats.
did worship.
Like, so that we
did worship, Pastor goats.
Types of goats.
Types of goats. Billy goat.
Billy.
Mountain.
What are? I don't think I know any other ones.
Farm.
That's
Farm.
it's just where they live.
I don't know any
Hooves.
other.
You're
Hooves.
just describing
Bovine creatures.
bovine creatures.
Hooved
They live in the-
animals.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, today we have a real special treat for you guys. Today we have our first guest
Ever
ever
in the history of the podcast.
and we wanted our first guest. Speaking of goats.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of goats, we have the man, the myth, the legend. We wanted our first guest to be someone super special. We have no idea how this is going to go because we've never had a guest, nor has he ever been on a podcast, nor do I even know if he knows what a podcast is.
I'm not sure why I'm here also, but
You're here to glean, to learn,
to listen,
to ask
enjoy.
questions. It's going to be
gonna be
awesome. Without further ado, we're going to bring in our first guest, and we hope that you enjoy. All right, we are here with guest number one, as promised. It is my papa,
Our senior pastor
our founding pastor,
at New Life.
the GOAT, the man, the myth, the legend, the best. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I thought as I was sitting out in the green room,
Which is the hallway.
yeah, in the hallway, yeah. Well, I've spent a lot of time out there. There's another, so there's so many facets to my story that I can go off in a tangent any moment and just find something to talk about where God has orchestrated and God has made things happen and caused things to come to pass. I couldn't help but think when I, saw you guys assembling and one by one, and I thought, know him, baptized him, know him, dedicated him. And so I'm looking at the product of God's anointing and working in lives, and you are the culmination of it. You're the fulfillment of the prophecy that God made so many years ago through various servants. He said that out of this place would flow knowledge of God, knowledge of how much He loves and cares and wants us to know Him, and God has prophesied that, and you're the fulfillment of it. You're doing just that what God said, and I thought to myself, how that God brought these things to pass, all of these tiny little things of just fitted together so beautifully. And of course, God doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
There they are, and here I am, all these years, 90 years old,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing the fulfillment of what God promised so long ago, and it's not done. That's why I'm looking to the future. I believe that God has got yet great things for us to do, and you'll be the spearhead. That'll be it. So stay sharp.
Yeah, Papa's getting this emotional, worked up right off the jump here. So we wanted to have you on because we thought that, obviously you're my grandfather, so I know most of your life story, and Devon's been around for a long time, and so he's heard all the stories. But there's a lot of people that either go to our church or people who thankfully watch this podcast that don't go to our church. That don't really know, where this all came from and where this all happened. And so you just said you're 90. So you were born in what, 1935?
Yes,
Am I doing the math right?
1935.
These guys were just making fun of me for being a junior when Mateo was born. 1935. That doesn't even sound like a real number. So walk us through quickly, just, obviously people probably don't know, as a young man, as a young boy, you're in church, but then stray a little bit and get caught up in some sticky situations, if
Yeah.
you will?
Yeah, well, to make it as brief as I can, it 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 all kicked off. I mean, my downward path from where I was. I was a young boy raised in church, raised to love God, love being in His house, and so on and so forth. But well, what happened? People say to me, Why did you turn away from all of that?" I was, about 16 years of age, and I was offered an opportunity to come to the States and make, which in those days was really unheard of, and that was, gospel music on tape.
Oh wow.
And I got this offer through this very well-known evangelist, and who had a lot of influence and everything else. But I was underage, and I needed parents' consent for me to be able to do that. And quite honestly, and I'm not laying blame on them today, but my dad was willing, but my mother was, against it. And as a result of it, I didn't go. And so I was bundled off to seminary and told that was the avenue. If you want to be in ministry, you've got to go that way. And you've got to go to Bible school and so on and so forth. Wow. I was there for about 6 weeks. And one night I realized that this wasn't working out for me, and I left and everything else. And I was an angry young man. I became angry, and I became bitter, and I have to confess it. I suppose I was angry with God. I was, bitter and angry that this opportunity came my way, and I wasn't allowed to participate in it. And as a result of it, I just went from bad to worse. I joined the British Army, and as soon as I got into the Army, I was a singer, and so I started to learn all the songs that the world was singing at the time, and it wasn't very, very long before I was on weekends. I was working in clubs for just for a few dollars extra on my Army pay, and the crowd that I mixed with, they had no interest in God whatsoever, and so I got to a place where I had no interest in God, and I just got more and more bitter, and as a result of it, when I came out of the Army and into civilian life, I gravitated to that group of people, and those people that were, in show business, and those people that could give opportunity for me to, use my talent, but not for God, as I really had been called to do. It was a prophecy made over me when I was a young boy that God would use me and everything else. Well, this was the furthest thing from my mind now, and I would think about that from time to time and say, well, that never came true. Look, here I am. And I felt in some way that God had kind of put me on the back burner and forgotten about me. But you know what? He was there all the time. There's a great gospel song that I used to sing years ago, and the words of it are, He was there all the time. And God is always there. God is in the shadows of our life, and if we look for Him, He's there. But I was the opposite. I wanted to push away from God and those the things. And the people that I hung out with, and I started to frequent bars, and I started to frequent, places of ill repute, betting shops, and where you could go and place a bet, and everything else. And the crowd that hung out there, and the people that were there, were people that had no interest in God and no interest in knowing Him, and so I become part of it. And with them. And
Well, that's what we always say, right? We tell parents, we tell people. Our parents said it to us. My dad said it to me. It's like, you are who you hang out with. And or show me your friends and I'll show you your future and different things like that. And as kids, you're like, Oh yeah, I get it, Dad. Whatever it is, what it is. But it's true. It's like the more time you spend with those people, the more circumstances and places you put yourself in with those people, it's going to attract you and want to be like that. And so,
Influence, influence,
yeah,
influence.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And you know, we were my son Jason and I were the other day talking about this, and he was saying that how that, you know, it's amazing when you think about it that God in His mercy and His love, although with not pushing and forcing Himself upon me, because it has to be a choice. And, you know, wherein is the choice? If God forces you and pushes you to do something, there's no free will. And so God allows you to exercise your free will, you know, although it breaks His heart to see what choice you make. And I was making the wrong choice all the time. I was with people that talked about, you know, breaking into places and stealing and robbing and so on and so forth. And I got involved with people that were fences for other people, and as a result of it, I, and you know, I only thought about it just the other day. I right in the middle of all this time, and I was getting worse, and the people that I was associating were more and more violent. They thought nothing of, you know, just getting into a fight with anybody over anything, and you know, it is dangerous. And you know, I started to carry you know, a switchblade, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
You know, and everything else. Well, why would I carry that? Well, I was defending myself or whatever. I felt if I was attacked in our business, but it was obvious that I was becoming hardened to the things of the gospel and the things of Christ, and I was becoming more and more involved in this life of sin, and as a result of it, rather, I went and I bought a shotgun, and I've stopped and thought about it, and I thought about it the other night. I said, Jesus, why would I bought a shotgun? I went out and bought the shotgun because I thought to myself, I'm going to saw the barrels off this thing, and I'll carry it with me because of the crowd that I was with and the things that were happening. And I saw a lot of barroom fights, and oftentimes I was in the middle of it. I only said this yesterday to Jason. I remember the times when I was so angry, and there was an expression that was around back in the 50s and 60s, angry young man. I think I was one of the original angry young men. I was angry at everybody and anybody, and especially at God. I was angry. And, you looked at me sideways, and I'd assume that, you know, you wanted to take a piece of me or something or other, you know. So I'd initiate, you know, a conversation that would goad somebody into you know, taking a swing at me, and I mean, I just wanted to be in a place where, you know, I was accepted in the crowd that I was going with, you know, and I had to, as it were, prove myself that I was as tough as they were, that I was as hard as they were, and so on and so forth. And you know, I was succeeding. I was doing a number on myself, you know, and it's a long story, but I eventually I got arrested, and that in itself is a miracle because I had that night we were on a job that went wrong, and an alarm went off that was supposed to have been taken care of. We had a guy with us that was, you know, a safe breaker, and he had worked on, you know, refining the art of getting into places where he shouldn't be, and in other words, cracking faces and so on and so forth. And he was supposed to have taken care of this, and he obviously missed something, and this alarm went off, and this whole warehouse of goods that we were about to steal. I mean, and it was worth thousands and thousands of dollars. In those days, small radios became popular, and this thing was full of them. It was where the components were brought together and made and put together and then packaged and everything else. So the haul was worth thousands, and all of a sudden, this alarm went off, and somebody panicked, and we ran, and we got out of there. And I went my own way, and it was pouring with rain, I remember, and I got outside, and it was only one getaway car, and I didn't have a seat in it, and the rest of the guys left, and some of us were left on foot and everything else, and I was one of them. And that was it. And I made a detour around the city because I knew, and because it wasn't long before I saw lots of blue lights flashing all everywhere, up this street and down that street and everything else. And so they knew that they had us, really boxed in. And anyway, so I kept cutting through, and I was soaked to my skin. I remember, and I was walking, and I stood on a bridge that goes over a river called Taff, Taff, Taff River, and it runs right through Wales. And here I am in the city, and I'm standing on the bridge, and I'm looking down at the water, and it's dark and it's black, and I thought, you know what? It'd be better off if I was dead, because by this time I was married, and I had one child at that time, and I looked at it, and it was so depressing. And I remember saying to myself, if I could turn the clock back, I would have gone a different way. I would have not involved myself. I would have not have gotten where I am. I would have not become the creature that I was. I would not become the hard man that I was, and I would have done something different. But Satan, I really believe, was sitting on my shoulder, and he said, "Yeah, but it's too late for you. You've gone too far. You've done what you've done, and there's no turning back. It's only straight ahead and whatever that holds for you." And so I really believed that I was a hopeless case and that there was no way that I could go back. But I always remember, and I hadn't prayed a prayer in years, but I remember, if you could call this a prayer, I said, "God, if there was a way, I'd take it." And I left the bridge and walked down the ramp onto the road, and I was just coming down the street, because from where the bridge is to where the house where I lived was nothing more than about 200 yards. And as I walked closer to the house, I realized there was movement, and I looked, and out from behind the bushes came these cops, and they grabbed on me,
There's your way.
Wrestled me to the ground, and what and I put up a fight, and that was it. And I was arrested, right on the spot, and I remember the door that led from the hallway in the house opening, and the light shone out, and it illuminated, and this cop had hold of me, and he already had me in cuffs and everything else, and I'm standing there, And my sweet wife was standing there just looking at it and observing all this and like not realizing that, what it was that I'd been involved in or anything, because in some way I was able to protect her from that life. But I was body and soul in it, up to my neck. And I remember how that I got arrested and I was taken to the local jail. And that night, in the middle of the night, actually early hours of the morning, the jailer came and rattled my cage, literally, and said to me, "There's someone here to see you." And then he said to me, "And nobody knows about this," because it was not allowed. I was not yet. I hadn't been arraigned, and I remember standing there and going up to the bars, and around the corner they brought my wife in. And I was there, and what had happened was this, that while I was in that cell, I suddenly realized that the prayer that I'd prayed an hour or so ago on the bridge, when I said, "God, if there was a way, I'd take it. If there was a way to go back, I'd take advantage of it if I could. But I'm too far gone. I've committed so much sin, and there's no way that I'm gonna, and everything else." But all of a sudden, I realized that God had provided the answer to prayer. It wasn't a very nice way to do it, but He had me arrested. That was the answer to the prayer.
Yeah.
It had to come to an end, and so you may as well start here before you get any worse, before you take somebody's life, because I'd got to that place where I really didn't care. I mean, I'd thought it through to myself, and maybe that's somewhere I went and bought the shotgun and so forth, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll get into a situation where I'll need this sometime. I don't know. But I'd gotten that hard. I'd gotten that void of feeling or compassion for anybody. And I said, this is it. And I realized that and so I knelt down in the cell and I said, "God, if this is the answer to prayer, then I'll have to accept whatever comes and everything else." And I'd ask God to forgive me. And then all of a sudden, here's my wife standing on the other side of the bars. And I said to her, "How can you forgive me for what I've done and the person that I've become? When you married me, you had no idea that I would turn into this monster, and such a hard case. But how could you forgive me? I said, I've asked God to forgive me, and I believe. I said, I'm trying to believe that He has done that. He has forgiven me. But how can I ask you to forgive me?" And she turned to me, and the words have become famous. She said to me, she said, "How can I remember what God has chosen to forget?"
Yeah.
They were words of wisdom. She was a young woman herself, and she didn't talk like that.
Yeah. No, that's powerful.
And it was like a light suddenly shining, inside this dark place. And I said, "Wow, really?" And she said, "If God has chosen to forget it, then I must try too." And that's what I'm going to do, and everything else. And wow, I was charged with 5 charges of grand larceny. grand larceny is anything over $1,000. In those, and it's a lot more now, but anything over $1,000 is what they call grand larceny. And so the jailer had said to me, he said, you're gonna, because when I was brought up before the judge, I pleaded guilty to everything. The judge actually couldn't understand it. He said to the counsel, he said, is he pleading guilty to? And the guy that they had given me to, at least speak for me at that particular time. Later on, I got a real barrister or a real attorney, but this guy was, by the state, and he said, that's what he wants to do. And he said he's pleading guilty to everything, everything we bring at him. He says, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was involved in that. Yeah, guilty. And I was guilty all the way. But I felt that if I was going to do something with my life, if I was going to turn it around, it had to be a clean sweep. Yeah. It had to be some way that I could get rid of everything in one foul sweep, get rid of it. And so I pleaded guilty. And the judge was like amazed. But he warned me that each charge carried a minimum of 5 years. So I had 5 of those against me. And it's a long story, but it's. I'm not asking you to ask me to come back again, but
we will.
There are other parts to this. How the judge that listened to the all case does not turn up on the day that he's supposed to sentence each one of us.
Yeah.
And when I asked the jailer, and we call him a screw, and he said, when I asked the screw, I said, what happened? He said, he's become sick, and he's rushed to hospital, and they believe he's had a heart attack. And he was known as a hanging judge. They did this, Justice Barry. They knew that he was tough and he was hard, and he had no leniency for anybody, And so this is the guy, the guy that didn't cut the wire that I told you about. Yeah. He'd been in and out of jail a few times, so he was more than a 3-time loser. So I think he got 10 years right off the top, And there were other charges against him later too, minor charges which carried, smaller sentences, but they all mounted up. And, I think like by the time he'd finished, he was going to be doing 20 years. And in those days, if you were sentenced to, 20 years, you did. You know what they did? They thought they'd encourage you, so they gave you a day off. They took a day off your sentence for every year that you. So
a day?
A day.
One day.
They let you out a day early.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine a guy 20 years, he's coming out
20 days early.
For 20 years. So they gave him 20 days. They let you go for 20 days. So it was tough. It was hard, and believe me, prison was tough in those days. I mean, I slept on a wooden bed. There were no springs to it at all. It was just a wooden planks, and that was it with a mattress on it that was full of coconut fiber. Coconut fiber. You used to poke through the canvas and you'd be laying on it. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And really it was tough. And over the weekend, when you were brought in new inmates, you just had to wait. And I mean, guys were complaining and saying, they haven't even given us any food. They haven't, given us any food, and a whole day went by, and they hadn't given you any food, and and when we said, hey, come on, give us some food to eat, or something like that, guy looked and says, hey, you're on them side of the bars, you're in jail, you're in prison, yeah, you put up, we'll get some bread to you when we can, And they did. At the end of the day, they brought a couple of stale loaves in and gave it to us. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was prison in the real sense of the word.
Yeah.
And but I knew in my heart that God was behind it, that God was in this, and it was putting it all together, and. One of the pastors from the church came to see me and sat and talked with me and prayed with me and everything else. And the things that he said confirmed what I knew that God was doing in my life and in my heart, And like I said, I was sentenced to all these different sentences, and they were grand larceny. It carried this 5-year sentence. When the judge that was going to became sick and was rushed to hospital, and he actually did have a heart attack, they brought in another judge because there was only 2 or 3 of us left. He said there was a whole mob of people. I'm running ahead of myself, and you'll have to do it in 2 parts, guys. I know you will, because getting to that place. Where I'm sentenced, it was a miracle in itself, how that God put all this together, and the barrister or the lawyer that defended me, I remember his name, Blackburn Giddings. From this day, and he talked like that, He was terribly British. And yes, hello, my name's Gladstone. I'm going to defend you. I thought you couldn't defend a mouse. I mean, he was a small little guy, you know what I mean. But man, when he got in the courtroom, he was a tiger. Yeah. He was really something, And he pled my case, and. I although I still didn't think, it would come to much, but I still think that God then went a step further and removed the judge that would be sentencing me and put in this lenient judge who believed in prison reform. He'd written books on it, and he believed that it's not always the answer in putting somebody away and just slamming them and shutting the door on them, that we can rehabilitate these people and everything else. And I was a prime candidate as far as he was concerned, because I'd never been in court before, but now I'm there for the big jobs, all of these warehouses and stuff that have been robbed and done, this was me. And so he says, I feel, yes, it is what he said. He said, young man, today I feel constrained, and I can see him now with the gray wig on, because this happened in the UK, this is British law, and he's got the gray wig on, and he leans across the thing and says, young man, I feel constrained to be lenient toward you. I don't know why, but maybe there's hope for you yet, I'm going to sentence you to these, and he sentenced me, and every time he brought down the thing and said that this is what much time I was going to serve on this and how much time I was going to serve on that. And so, I thought, dear Lord, my whole life is gone, it's gone, it's finished, it's over, you may as well bury me now, and then he said, but all of these sentences are to run concurrently, and so you will take into consideration the time, because I was waiting 6 months in in prison for the trial to come. So they took that 6 months and they added that 6 months in there, and then I ended up by doing a year and a half.
Wow.
And I should have done all those years.
Yeah.
I should have done. So I realized that God was in this, right from my thoughts. So right away I started to tell people when I was with them in the cell. Sometimes it was 4 of us in the cell. Sometimes and if one went out and a new guy came in, I looked at him and said, material. Let me talk to him about God. Let me tell him.
Yeah.
And I was already saying to him, you know what? I don't know what you're going through or not like that, but I know that God has interfered in my life, and what He's done for me, He can do for you. Yeah. So I started, and the preacher, they called him, the
Little prison ministry.
It started right away, and then I made a request because the job they gave me was to, and everybody gets this job, making mail bags for the Royal Mail, and you have to do it by hand. Yeah, and it's a canvas bag, and you have to make an edge on it and everything else and stitch it. And there had to be 15 stitches per inch. And if there weren't 15 stitches in that inch, they'd come. He had a razor blade, and he'd come and he'd cut them open, like I said, do them again.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And you'd have to, stitch it. Then they were tough. Those warders were tough. They were tough guys. You didn't look at them the wrong way. You'd yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Whatever you want, sir. I was, compliance. That was the thing. But I found out that they needed guys in Exeter on the moor, on that part of England. If you look at it in Exeter, it's way out in the moor. If you've ever read Sherlock Holmes, Hound of the Baskervilles, that was where it was depicted on the moor and everything else. And there were the quicksands there and everything. You can get lost and people go down in the quicksands. And so that's why they put the prison right in the middle of it. Well, we weren't actually in the prison. We were in a place that was, over here a few miles away. But I used to get up at 4:30 every morning to get down and climb onto the back of a truck at 5 o'clock and be driven out with about 30 other guys, and we'd go all the way out of the moor, and then they'd camp for the day. They'd set up place, and it was. So I used to look at it like it was just like a picnic.
Yeah.
We're having
Outdoors
a picnic.
time.
We're having a picnic, and we'd work all day, and we'd dig trenches, and all day long, and break rocks and all that. It was hard labor, but I'd rather do that because it made the time go quicker, and I was getting fresh air, and I was, I was working, and plus the fact you're allowed to talk to each other. When you're inside and you're in you weren't allowed to talk to anybody. So it was a privilege. I considered it was better for me. I got a lot of blisters on my hands, and but I was healthy. And I was working, and that's what and then I had to come home from there, Exeter. They only drive you from the prison down to the railroad station, and they give you a little card like this, and it says on His Majesty's prisons, and you go to the ticket counter and you have to pass it in, and they give you a real ticket to get on the train to go home wherever you're going to go. And the clothes that I had were the clothes I'd been arrested in, and they'd been stuffed in a bag for that was it. There was no crease, and I was sharp. I like to dress. I was Steve, father. I was like I look like a hobo, and but they give you the railroad people, and they take your card from you and look at you, They just, you know, you're an ex-con,
Yeah.
you know. So they just look at you, you know. And I remember thinking to myself when I got the ticket and gave the receipt to him for it, and he looked at me, you know, and he just stood back and he just kind of looked at me, you know. And he was on the inside, you know, through a little thing that I couldn't get at him if I wanted to, but I wouldn't have anyway, you know. And I said, yeah. Today I said, I just got out, and I said, you can see that, you know. I said, and just as I was coming through the gate, I said, one of the screws said to me, don't forget, did you eat your porridge today? Porridge is oats, you know, but this was made with just water. There's just no milk, no sugar, no nothing in it, just oats. So it's like gruel, you know, when you eat it, but it fills the belly. And of course, they have a saying, and if you don't eat your oats the last day that you're in, you'll be back inside within the year. It's a, you know, a dumb thing that they say, you know. And I remember him saying to me, you know, did you eat your oats? Did you eat your oats? And I said, yeah, I ate my oats. And in fact, I had double helping. Yeah. I said, you know.
I'm never coming back here.
I actually liked it, you know. I liked it. And I remember that. So I told the same thing to the guy, you know, and he said, well, we'll see. I said, you'll be seen. You'll have to wait a long time, pal. Don't hold your breath. I'm not coming back. Believe me. When I'm out of here, I'm out of here. Yeah. And then there's the story, and the part of the story when I come home, I get off the train, and there's one of my old con friends waiting for me, and he wants to, you know, give me money and pay, and I couldn't take the money because I knew that the money was, it was tainted, it was dirty, it was dirty money, and I couldn't be a part of it because I said I'm done with all that, you know, and I'm finished, and I really appreciate your help, Al. His name was Al. I said, Al, I'd take it, but I said, I'm a different man. And I said, I can't do that. I can't be a part of it, you know. But he said, you know, it's nothing, you know. It's you know, a few $100, you know, but, you know, pounds, you know, and it's a few £100. It'll see you through for a couple of days, you know. It'll keep, you know, because you're not going to get a job when you get out of here. And he was right. And I did everything. Any job that was going. I'd go down to the docks, and I'd stand there. They only look for good guys, big, strong guys, to unload ships at the dock side. So I'd put 2 coats on, and I'd pull myself into 2 coats, and I was seriously. And I'd stand on the curb, and I'd put my toes in the curb, and it was them. So it gave me, and I looked 6 inches taller, because they'd only pick the big guys. Yeah, you. That's it. I need just 5 guys. Okay, rest of you forget, and you'd go off. Casual labor, they call it, and a lot of it, you know, is money under the table. They pay you, you know, the guys. I did that. I shoveled coal. I shoveled coke. Not the coke that you stick up your nose. And not the coke you drink in the bottle. It's a product of coal, and they make it in steel to use it in steel making. And Wales is known for it, and you got it by the tons there, and you shovel. They give you a big shovel like this, you know. And then there was lumber that came from Norway, and it was always raining, it seemed, whenever they wanted it. And they'd put 3 or 4 planks on your shoulder, and you'd walk down the aisle, and it would be bouncing like this. And there's always some clown in the group. So as you pass, he'd hit the end of the thing, you know, and of course you take off like a propeller, you know, like this, you know, spinning on the thing. And there was a time, you know, when I would have, you know, I'd have gone at him, and I would have, you know, done what I could do. Like I said, sometimes I got beat up myself, but you know, I couldn't let it pass. But now I'd look and go, funny guy, you know. And
Spirit changed.
Changed.
Yeah.
Spirit was changed. And I was looking, waiting for you guys to set up. I was looking. I thought I sat outside there in that place where I was sitting like that, not once but hundreds of times, scores of times. My son Simon went to glory from this room that we're in right now, right here. His head is where Simon's head was, right there. I got and I sat here and held his hand as he went to glory. And you look at it and say, well, how did God allow that to happen? It's all part of the plan of God to mold and fashion and change the clay. The story of the potter, it says, the clay was marred in the potter's hands. It says in Jeremiah, it says the clay was marred in the potter's hands. And so the potter made it again. Another vessel has seemed good to the potter to make. God being the potter, we being the clay. Yeah. God molds us and fashions us and takes his hands and puts his hands into our lives, and he adds pressure, and he finds the grit, and he finds the places in the clay that are impure and imperfect, and he removes and extracts. And through that experience of my son contracting cancer, and then after 5 years, he battled through, and then God took him home. But he was gloriously and marvelously saved. I stood outside that door that I stood outside waiting for you guys this morning, and thought about how that door was ajar. And I'd come up because I thought he was once again vomiting like he would after chemotherapy. And when I got to the top of the stairs and I listened, and the door was open a little, it was not that. It was him worshiping and praising God and speaking in another tongue as the Holy Spirit gave him utterance. And he was baptized in the Holy Spirit in this very room. And his hands he couldn't hold up because they were weak. So he held them up and put them behind the bedposts and jammed his hands in because he wanted to keep his hands raised while he was worshiping God, And so he was baptized. And so I sat outside, and I couldn't enter in here because I felt it was like when Moses approached the burning bush. Just take off your shoes, Moses. Yeah. You're standing on holy ground. And I felt that it was holy ground. And so this morning, as I was waiting, I suddenly was thinking about all of that, and I was thinking, this is I've come full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've come and I love you guys, and you're like my sons, and you are my sons, my spiritual sons, and God has increased. Simon went home to glory, and he's there now. But God has replaced him with so many others that have come alongside me and been my sons. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're not. Listen, we're definitely gonna have a part 2, maybe a part 3, and a part 4. This is certainly gonna be one of our longer episodes, but we don't care.
No,
I don't care.
Yeah.
And I that's just a part of it, right? Like, people just heard the first part of your story. I mean, there's the coming over to the States, there's starting the church, there's building the church, there's growing the church, there's watching your son step into ministry, and then another son step into. I mean, there's so much, like you're saying, it's all come full circle, and there's so much that God has done in your life that we wanted people to hear where it all started. We wanted people to know that no matter where you've been, no matter what you've been through, like you just said, that God has a plan for your life. And if he's got to take you there the long way, he'll take you there the long way. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, everything that you just talked about in your story have literally been the things that we've talked about the first few weeks of our podcast. You know, we just started this a few weeks ago, and we talked about influence and the people you hang out with, and you brought up the people that influenced you poorly. And we talked about, you know, the road trip and the fact that sometimes God is bringing you to a place, but you forget about the whole journey in between. And sometimes it goes like, I mean, we've literally talked about all these different things, and then now we bring you on to hear the first part of your story. And I hope that people watching and listening can realize that no matter how dark it might get, no matter how difficult it seems, if God has called you to live for him, he'll be faithful to complete that good work.
And to be obedient. That's what you said. It's God, if there's a way out, I'm going to take it. And then you had every opportunity to go back to what you wanted to do or were doing before, but you said, you know what, I'm going to stay true to what God has called me to do, and I'm going to push forward. And now, like you said, we're seeing the full circle, or we're seeing God's hand and his faithfulness and the fruit of that now today. And so it's really, really
There's
cool.
always consequences for your actions. And I think when people own those, like you did, right? Like you said, guilty, 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 you know, you own those. God, this is what I did. I lay it all before you. God usually works it out.
Yeah.
For good. And so we thank you. Obviously, I'm blood, but we thank you. All of us thank you for your leadership and your, you know, you came before us and you dug up all the hard ground. What we get to do now is a piece of cake.
Easy.
It's easy. It's easy compared to what you did. And so, we appreciate you for that.
And it's encouraging for us to, when the days get hard, or when the seasons get hard, or the stuff that we want to see in the future, we have to know, okay, well, we got to go and dig it up, and we got to plant the right seed, and we got to do these type of things. And so it's as equally, we're grateful, but it's as equally inspiring too. And so we thank you for that.
To have people that go before you as an example, that, like Devon just said, when something looks a little bit hard or looks a little bit difficult, to have people that have gone through worse or pushed through harder things and had more faith, it makes you realize, hey, you know what? I can get through what I need to get through. I can push through what I need to push through. And so we thank you. I hope everyone listening and watching is grateful for this. And we will definitely do a part 2, because we need to hear all about, you know, you coming over to the States and God calling you here, and the fact that we have this incredible church now because of it. But we wanted to make sure that everyone heard where the story began, that it doesn't always begin in these beautiful moments. Sometimes it begins in the dirt and in the difficulty and in the struggle. And that's sometimes, a lot of times, where God does his best work. So thank you. Thank you for being on. And thank you.
If you're not already following us on social media through our church accounts or our personal accounts, please do so. Subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, save it on the podcast.
Follow
or
Papa
Spotify.
on TikTok.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding. He doesn't have a TikTok. We should get him on
get him on
TikTok.
there.
Yeah, we should definitely get him on. But we thank you for watching, for listening, and we hope that you have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
Peace.